Selfishness is not living as you wish. Selfishness is asking others to live as you wish. The first is the privilege of being alive. The second is the game of control. But watch what happens when we look closer. The ultimate selfishness is also the ultimate selflessness. We've been trained to flinch at the word selfish, as though caring for our own well-being were some moral crime. But have you noticed, you cannot experience life except from the center of your own awareness. You cannot see through my eyes or feel with my nerves. You are unavoidably the point of view from which the universe looks out. When you understand this, you see that you have never been anything but selfish, not in the petty sense of grabbing the biggest slice, but in the simple fact that all experience passes through the self. The question is not whether you will be selfish, but whether your selfishness will be narrow and frightened, or so vast that in caring for yourself, you find you are caring for the whole world. From an early age, we quietly inherit the idea that caring for ourselves means we're taking something away from others. Time, love, and attention start to feel like a small pie. If you serve yourself a generous slice, someone else must go without. Look a little closer. You'll see something interesting. When someone tells you to stop being selfish, they are often being selfish themselves. They want you to care for them first. Sometimes it's obvious. Other times it wears a more polite disguise. They may not even want the thing for themselves. They want you to do it for someone else. At first glance, that sounds noble. But if you look closely, it's still about their values, their vision of what's right, their sense of moral order. They may say, you should visit your uncle, it's the right thing to do. Or you should go to that party, your friend will be disappointed if you don't. But whose right thing is this? It's not the uncle asking. It's them wanting to live in a world where people behave according to their picture of how life should be. We usually think selfishness only lives in small acts. The friend who won't help you move, the partner who keeps the last slice of cake. But step a little further in, we see the same self-focus in the acts we celebrate as selfless. This isn't an insult to kindness. It's the honest truth about human nature. Every choice we make comes through the lens of our own feelings, our own desires, our own story. Once you see this, you stop dividing life into selfish and selfless, and you start noticing the single current running underneath them both. And when you notice that current, you begin to see it everywhere. In the kindness of a stranger, in the patience of a teacher, in the tenderness of a lover. Beneath every action, no matter how noble, is the quiet pull of something we wish to feel, to know, or to become. This doesn't cheapen the act. It's what gives it life. Even the purest kindness begins with a personal longing, the wish to see goodness in the world and to feel it in oneself. This isn't a criticism. It's the very reason goodness exists at all. You give to charity not only to help someone in need, but to feel the warmth of generosity, to live in a world where kindness exists, and to taste that world yourself. You love someone not because a rule says you must, but because being with them makes life sing in your bones. What we call sacrifice is simply the heart choosing the peace it can live with. Like a parent sitting up through the night with their feverish child because their own rest is tied to the child's breath. Seen this way, selflessness is not the absence of self-interest. It is self-interest expanded. It is joy in a wider frame. And without that joy, no one would act at all. To see the relationship of self to other is to realize that loving yourself is impossible without loving all that you once thought was not you. The boundary between me and you is a useful convention, but not a real division. Your joy is tied to the joy of those around you, just as the health of your heart is tied to the health of the whole body. Psychological egoism says all human actions are motivated by self-interest. It's not a judgment, it's simply noticing how the game is played. Every sensation, every thought, every act passes through the same center, the self. But here is where the view widens. The small self is the body, the name, the private story. The big self is the universe expressing itself through you. The flower does not bloom for the bee. It blooms because blooming is what it does, and in blooming the bee arrives. When you care for yourself in truth, you are caring for the entire wave of the ocean, because the wave is the ocean. The heart pumping for itself is also pumping for the body. Your joy nourishes the whole. The highest form of selfishness is to recognize there is no real boundary between you and the world. That caring for yourself is caring for everything, because you are everything. If you are not selfish enough to keep yourself in tune, you have nothing to give the world but noise. To be in tune is to move as the river moves, not forcing, not holding back, but flowing in the shape of your own bed. It is the oak growing from its own roots, not straining to be a pine. It is living from the center instead of chasing the edges. When you are selfish enough to care for the ease of your own being, you are selfish for the sake of everyone. Your tone carries into every room you enter, just as a single string in tune will set others vibrating without effort. This kind of selfishness is not turning your back on the world. It is being so much yourself that the world is nourished by your presence. What you give is not something you've manufactured. It is simply the overflow of being at home in your own skin. And the more you overflow, the more the line between me and you begins to fade. The self you think you're serving is not merely the small bundle of skin, bones, and memories you call me. That's just the costume. The real self is the ocean wearing the mask of a wave. Every experience you have of another happens within the theater of your own awareness. You have never truly touched anything outside your mind. The laughter of a friend, the warmth of the sun, even the hand you hold, all of it arrives as sensation in you. So when you serve yourself, you serve the world, because the world is not outside you. The highest selfishness turns out to be the highest selflessness. For when you are aligned with love, that love does not stay put. It spills outward into every life you touch. When the wall between self and other dissolves, the need to control begins to lose its grip. You start to see the world as a dance, not a marching line. If everyone did exactly what they truly wanted, the world wouldn't fall apart. It would fall into rhythm. Everyone would feel free. And freedom is the antidote to every negative emotion. Because every negative emotion, if you trace it back, is simply the feeling of lost freedom, the sense of being boxed into an expectation, a role, a should that rubs against the grain of your own being. And the release doesn't come from struggle, but from slipping back into your own natural flow, coming back to the current of what you really are. When you live from that current, you are no threat to anyone. You no longer need to force or to plead. You are at ease in the game. When selfishness is understood, it stops being about taking and becomes about keeping yourself full. From fullness, love flows without effort, and your presence itself is nourishment. True selfishness is not the ego hoarding for its little self. It is the whole recognizing that when one part thrives, the rest cannot help but benefit. Selfishness, in its highest form, is not the petty grab of the small self. It is the recognition that the self and the whole are not two things. When you drink water, the universe drinks. When you laugh, the universe laughs. And when you love, when you love, the universe remembers itself. We have been taught to shrink selfishness into a sin. But in truth, the purest selfishness is the purest generosity, because there is no joy that is truly yours alone. The moment you feel it, it ripples outward in your tone of voice, in the look in your eyes, in the way you stand in a room. This is why the highest gift you can give the world is to live in such a way that you are lit from within. Not to please, not to prove, not to perform, but because the fullness of your own being is the most natural offering you have. If you truly understood this, you would stop trying to divide life into selfishness and selflessness. You would see only the great tide of being